everyone. It's 7 p.m., so we're going to go ahead and get started. I do like to start on time. Tonight, we have with us Bryce Kinder from Kiwanis International. His official title is Technology Engineer. Many of you may remember him from the head of member services. He has been with Kiwanis for over 22 years, and we're happy to have him in this new position. And he's here tonight to teach us about generative AI. Bryce is my go-to at Kiwanis International. He usually can answer any questions I have, which is great because it's even hard to stump me. But if I don't have the answer, Bryce generally does. So on that high note, Bryce, I'm turning it over to you.
Thank you, Leah. I appreciate it. It's good to see everybody. It's good to see folks join a session on a weekday evening about something that can be daunting, like the prospect of AI. That's a conversation I think people have mixed feelings about, but really the point of our presentation tonight and in talking and kind of doing hands-on demonstrations of it is just to let you know that you can just as an ordinary, rank and file member of your club, you should be able to feel comfortable with using AI as a tool to help you do the work of your Kiwanis club. And I'm here to tell you, if somebody like me can get comfortable with it and then come and talk to folks about it, all of you can do it as well. And so that's really our purpose of talking tonight, is to give you a little information about artificial intelligence, where it's at now, kind of the history of it, and then more importantly, give you kind of an entree into it and see how it can be utilized by clubs and by you for lots of different aspects of your Kiwanis lives. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. We've got some talking points that will follow as part of the conversation. And then we'll, towards the latter half of the conversation, we'll do some hands-on work as well. So as Leah mentioned, I've been with the organization for a little over 22 years in various roles. And so I'm excited to be with you all to talk about this particular topic of everyday generative AI. So just a little bit more about our agenda for tonight. We'll be covering just the definition of AI. We all hear about it within the news and kind of media and read different things about it. But let's find out what it actually is. We'll talk about just kind of a very general history of AI. You'll be surprised by how long AI has kind of been a facet in the world. We'll talk about the three kind of main tools for generative AI platforms: ChatGPT, Copilot, and Google Gemini. Bing Chat as Copilot has been Bing Chat has been renamed as Copilot as part of that, and so we'll talk about those platforms. Most importantly, we'll talk about how to write an effective AI prompt. All of this is theoretical until we start working in an AI platform. And to utilize that AI platform, we need to understand how we can write strong, effective prompts, the information we're inputting, so that we get something that is successful back out from the AI. So we're going to teach you kind of the formula about how to write a good prompt. And then we'll do a hands-on demonstration. I've got a pre-built one for us, but if we have time, we'll, as a group, maybe take some suggestions and talk through a use case that you might have for a club or for yourself. We'll just kind of summarize some reviews and takeaways, and then certainly we'll have time for question and answers. So I've got the chat open as well. So if you have questions as we go through, I'll try to organically answer those, or we'll try to answer them at the end. There will be chances for participation. So when that occurs, we'll probably look to have you put information in the chat or share some feedback in the chat as part of that. But just remember, the chat area is there for you to share as part of that. And we want to have this as a kind of two-way conversation going on. So So, kind of the first thing I'd like to gauge, from those of you that are attending is, when you hear about AI, when you hear about artificial intelligence, what is one or two words that come to mind as part of that? Like I mentioned, people have ambivalent feelings about AI, whether they kind of know a lot about it or they've just heard kind of it as a buzzword as part of that. But what's a one or two word feeling that you have about AI when you hear about it? Or it could even be longer as part. If you've got something, go ahead and put it in the chat box as part of that. But again, lots of different things that folks feel about um, artificial intelligence. Good, bad. Computers taking over. Yep, that's certainly a common one. We hear about how AI is going to phase out different businesses, different industries, and things like that. And so that's certainly an aspect of it. Dangerous, scamming, yeah, definitely. Those are definitely things that we might hear about. Dangerous from a standpoint of hackers can use AI, machine learning, to help crack passwords and things like that. So they definitely can leverage that part. Identity theft's a good one as well. Unlimited in its potential. That's a very positive outcome as part of that. You're exactly right. Just like any kind of technological shift, it can be used for good and bad. And if it's used for good, there's a lot of power behind that. So yeah, computer learning and making decisions based on that learning, absolutely. So yeah, so again, a wide variety, and again, both negative and positive, and I think all of those feelings are valid, certainly. Again, the point of our conversation tonight is to help you understand what it is and what it isn't, and allowing you to be comfortable with it as a tool that you can just go out and play around with as part of that. Improved accuracy is a great one. Uh, AI can serve uh, as a resource for you, just like a skilled co-partner might be. If you're doing a task, whether that's writing content or you're checking data or researching something, AI can serve as sort of that second skilled person to kind of look over information. And so those are all great thoughts about AI and kind of what AI sounds like to different people. So let's talk about just kind of what the specific definitions of artificial intelligence is. So it's just a simulation, as we understand it, a simulation of human intelligence, right, in machines. And some of you kind of talked about, they're programmed to think, reason, and problem solve like a human, right? They're making those intuitive connections like a human would as part of that. Obviously, when we search on Google and we say, what is the capital of Wyoming or something like that, Google can very easily send us that information back as part of that. But AI can go a step farther by making contextual and long form connections as part of an ongoing conversation. And so that's where a lot of the power comes in as part of that, and that's what we'll kind of look at as well. I'm interested if anybody knows or has a guess how long you think AI has been around in the world as part of it, and the answer might surprise you. Does anybody want to venture a guess as to how old AI is? How far back would you think that AI would go back? 10 years, Mary puts in there, yeah.
Probably about 20.
Yeah, 20, okay. Yeah, 1970, so 85, 80. Yeah, those are great. And certainly, that seems to be kind of when we really started hearing about it. But you'd be surprised to know 1955 is when the first artificial intelligence uh, uh, system came along. Now, it was very rudimentary at that time, and we'll talk about kind of what those different different types of AI are. But 1955 was when the first learning capable system was recorded as part of that. So good work on to Vicky on that. And I assume everybody just came up with those dates, that they didn't Google it or anything like that. But those are good guesses as part of that conversation. So when we talk about AI or artificial intelligence, there's two common perceptions of AI platforms themselves: narrow AI and general AI. Now, when we say general AI, that's a theoretical one, and it's not to be confused with generative AI. Generative AI is what we'll talk about and focus on tonight, but there's narrow AI and general AI itself. And so yes, Bryce, what are the differences there as part of that? So narrow artificial intelligence is it's specialized, so it's very good and quick at doing specific tasks that it's been programmed specifically for. And these are probably a lot of the AIs that you probably all are familiar with in your daily lives. We'll talk about what some of those examples are, but these are systems that have been programmed, obviously, with a series of branching logic and information, what if kind of logic decision making paths there to fulfill a specific type of task or specific job as part of that. They have limited flexibility, right? They've been trained to do one thing very well and very quickly. And so if you ask them to do something outside of that training model, that data set that they've been trained on, they're either going to falter or they're not going to be able to complete the request. And so they have limited flexibility, and they're widespread. They're ubiquitous, right? That we see them, whether we know it or not, we see versions of them, and we see applications of them all the time as part of that. And so on screen, you'll see some types of narrow AI that we interact with already on a day-to-day, way. You think about your spam filter, or your junk filter on your email as part of that. That's AI. That's a program that's been trained to look for kind of the flags and the hallmarks of junk and spam email, and it's filtering that out as part of that. So we don't think about that, but that's definitely artificial intelligence. You think of home automation systems like Alexa and some of the others. Those obviously have AI. You can ask it to play a song. You can ask it a question. Those are obviously an extension of AI. We think of Google Translate or a browser version of a translation service. That's artificial intelligence as well. It's been trained to look at the input that you're putting in and then output, what the translation of that is. You see Hey Siri, we have the Hey Siri on our phones or a Google Assistant, depending on what type of phone you use. So mobile assistants that we have, that's artificial intelligence. If you have a smart car or a Tesla or something like that, there's AI built into those as well. The picture in the bottom left-hand corner is not necessarily one that we use every day, but obviously, if you do play any kind of chess or strategy games on your computer, those have AI built into them. Obviously, they're figuring out moves, further, several different branches down the game as part of that, and so some electronic games have AI and things like that. So again, we're interacting with AI all the time in kind of mundane and everyday ways, as just kind of part of our day-to-day existence. And so it's already out there. It's widespread, and these are all kind of narrow AI options or narrow AI examples. So let's talk about generative artificial intelligence. So this is a form of narrow AI, and a lot of those that we just looked at before this are generative AIs. And so
Something went wrong. Please try again.
I said, "Hey Siri," and my phone actually spoke up, so apologize for that. But generative AI is just artificial intelligence that can create new content that includes text and images and music and code. And the novelty about it is that it employs a natural and contextual way of interacting with the individual that's putting the information in. It's very conversational, and we'll kind of see that as we go through our demonstrations there. So rather than having to program a bunch of input information into you know, fields and things like that, we're able to have a very kind of human conversation with an AI platform, asking it to do things or give us information or write something or create something, and then have that information come back to us in a very conversational way as well. And this is what's allowing people to get more comfortable with utilizing AI. The implementation of kind of these platforms that allow people to interact with it in a very human and conversant way as part of that. So again, that's generative artificial intelligence, not to be confused with general artificial intelligence, but this is generative. Like we said, popular AI platforms are ChatGPT, Copilot, and Google Gemini. All of them do different things well. Some do things better than others as part of that. So we'll kind of take a look at all three, or at least the first two. But when we talk about this tonight, I wouldn't say that we're endorsing any particular one. Each of them does certain things well, and so really what I hope you take home is just to go out there and kind of play around with all of them and see how you can utilize them. So we talked about narrow AI, and then we mentioned that general artificial intelligence is the other type of artificial intelligence as well. And so when we talk about general artificial intelligence, this is kind of the science fiction-y stuff that we think about a little bit. This is the computers gaining consciousness sort of thing, and a lot of this is theoretical because general AI is not necessarily a reality as of yet. When we talk about general artificial intelligence, we're talking about a system that's as smart or approaching as smart as humans with consciousness, can learn and reason and solve problems on its own. And again, it doesn't exist yet. There are certain research institutions that have small kind of subsets of these types of things, but this is not really a reality necessarily. Some writers and some futurists kind of see this as really becoming a reality or a factor 20 years from now as part of that. So we're not quite there yet, but general artificial intelligence is kind of what we think, kind of that Skynet thing that we think. If you think of the Terminator movies, and the computers taking over the world, I don't think that general artificial intelligence is going to do that. But when we think about thinking, reasoning computers that are kind of making things, deciding things on their own and making kind of intuitive leaps without input from humans, general artificial intelligence is really what we're talking about. And that's where a lot of the conversation and talk about regulation and things, that sort of thing, it revolves around that right now. And so important to know, again, narrow AI is something that we're using all the time now. General AI is kind of in the future, and it's more theoretical at this point. So you can see here on the graph here is just kind of a little more explanation of that history of AI. I won't go into what all of these things are. Many of the systems that you see kind of at the start of the graph, back in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, and into the 80s, those were all systems that were created to do very specific things, whether they were in the medical industry or whether they were for financial systems. Many of them did very specific tasks. We talk about that narrow AI and the specialized nature of them. Was when we started getting into kind of the late 90s, early 2000s. If you remember IBM Deep Blue, you may have heard of that. I believe IBM Deep Blue was the AI that uh, chess grandmaster Gary Kasparov played chess against. I believe Deep Blue beat him, and I don't think he was too happy about that, but that was kind of uh, a notable instance of AI human interaction and how it was able to best him at a series of chess. Um, but then we saw some other systems go on. IBM Watson. If you watch Jeopardy at all, I think IBM Watson was one that was used in competing against some players in Jeopardy as part of that. And so you kind of see this gradual increase. And then we have kind of the inception of generative AI, the Chat GPTs, the Copilot, the Google Gemini, and we've started to see a kind of a market rise in the use of those types of things and the growth. And then you can see that general AI at the top. That's where that's that theoretical kind of point from the growth standpoint itself. So just kind of a little timeline of how certain aspects of those have come about. You can certainly check into those different things to see what they do. All of them kind of have interesting facets to them. But again, not just a recent thing, not the last 20 or 30 years, but it's been around for 60 or 70 years in certain formats and others. So let's talk about prompt writing, right? This is all great background information, but if it's not something that you can use, if it's not something that you can leverage in your Kiwanis lives and even in your personal lives, it's not going to have a lot of application to you, right? And so we want to give you a kind of a crash course on the specific engineering of how to write a prompt itself. So you say, Bryce, what is a prompt? Well, a prompt is the input that you're going to give to the AI platform that you're using to get information back from them. So when you're writing a prompt, you're just drafting something that is concise, obviously, that tells the AI platform exactly what you're wanting, that has instructions and descriptions for what you're looking for. And you do that to, answer a question or solve a problem. If you want to create content or you want to perform a task, these are all things that you might use a generative AI platform as part of that. And so to get information back from them, from the platform, you're going to need to write a prompt. You're prompting the system for information, and that prompt is going to include all kind of the instructions that you need to get back something as part of that. So effective prompt writing can help you save time. Now, we kind of talked about the conversational nature of AI, and certainly you can ask an AI a question and it might come back with something, and then you could tell it, well, maybe that's not quite right. Can you do this instead? And so you might have a back and forth conversation, and eventually you might arrive at the place where you've got the information exactly the way that you want it, and that's certainly okay. But so if you learn effective prompt writing and you construct your prompts efficiently kind of at the start, you'll save yourself a lot of time because the output that you get will come back to you much quicker and it'll be much closer to what you're asking. And so that's what kind of we want to focus on in this section is how to write an effective prompt as part of that. And no worries, we're going to kind of break down the structure of a prompt, and then we're going to see how that's utilized, how that kind of, we're going to put it on the bottom shelf and say, here's a real world example of how you might utilize that. So I should probably stop there. Are there any questions so far? I'm sure everybody's heads are probably spinning from what we've talked about. That was a lot of history and kind of data dump there. But any questions on anything that I've kind of talked about so far that I can try to answer? And it's okay if not. We can save them till the end, but want to make sure that Don't go too fast for anybody. Is there a cost to use AI? That's a great one. No, the three platforms that I've talked about, ChatGPT, uh, Copilot, Microsoft Copilot, and Google Gemini all have free versions. And I'll show you exactly where you can go to go out there and use them. They do have premium versions that you can pay for that will allow you to do extra stuff or might integrate some of your other applications on your computer and things like that. ChatGPT, for example, up until recently, ChatGPT, you couldn't generate images with it unless you paid for a plugin that did that. And so that would allow you to generate images. So each model has some premium versions that you can pay for, but no, the stuff that we're going to look at today is totally free. You could do this right along with me as we do it, and you would be able to do the exact same things that I would be able to do at no cost as part of it, and that's kind of the power of it as well. So hopefully that's not a hindrance to people as part of that. So great question. So just a couple of examples of prompts. When we talk about prompts, obviously we've talked about what they are, but you might still be thinking, I don't get the real world aspects of those, Bryce. Well, here's some examples of prompts that you might write to an AI platform. You might ask it as simple a question as, who was Kiwanis International's first president? Or you could ask it to solve an Excel formula for you. You could ask it to write a whole email for your Kiwanis Club about a upcoming event that you have or something like that. Or you could even ask it for research data back, telling it that you want specific income information for for a particular area or something like that. So all of these are different things that you might write a prompt for. And they're certainly not the only things, but this kind of gives you a good example of an assortment of different prompts that you might ask an AI platform for as part of utilizing it. So let's talk about writing a prompt step by step. So there's key pieces to writing a prompt that will make if you remember those, they'll make things much more effective and efficient for you as you use it. You always want to remember to include a role and goal in your prompt writing. You want to include contextual information, specific instructions, open-ended questions, constraints, and then probably the most important, and really the thing that we'll kind of try to hammer home, is a human in the loop, and we'll define what each of those things is. So first of all, role and goal. What is the role and goal? So in your prompt, you're going to start off by telling the AI what its goal is, like whose shoes is it filling for the question or the task that you're asking it, and you're going to tell it what the main goal of the prompt is going to be. You're going to say, you are this person, and you're writing an email for a club to invite members to an event or invite the public to an event. You're telling it who it's playing within this kind of exercise, and then you're going to tell it what the goal is of what you're trying to create. So there's an example. Tell it you're a data analyst. You want to, figure out what the optimal fundraiser event ticket price is. That's just an example of what the role and goal that you might have it choose. Contextual information, tell it the relevant background information. What these platforms can do is they can go out and find this information on the internet. So you give it a prompt, it's going to contextually go out and crawl different sources of information and kind of bring that up, but it's going to need some background as part of that. It's not going to know everything. And you'll really kind of see that when we highlight that in our demonstration next. But we need to give it contextual information. It's not going to know everything that a Kiwanian might know about Kiwanis life, or even, if you're doing it personally, things about your basic life. So again, include the host, when we're talking about this event pricing, what the location is, the season, the event theme, things like that. You want to give it specific instructions. If there's something that you specifically want it to do in this task that you're writing or that you're having it do, you need to tell that to it within the structure of your prompt. And then again, here's just an example. In this instance, we want to tell it, hey, use reliable data sources and explain how you chose those. If you have open-ended questions, you can include those as well. This is where a lot of times, if you're asking the AI to kind of help you with creativity or coming up with some ideation, with some brainstorming, this is where you can kind of ask it to do that as part of it. And that's a powerful part, especially if you're creativity deficient like myself. I'm not a very creative guy. And so AI has helped me a lot in thinking outside of the box on certain things, and thinking kind of fun aspects of different activities and things like that. So it can be a great tool as part of that. Here, and again, just an example, what creative ideas can be provided around that ticket pricing. Constraints, if we need to put any guardrails or guidance around our prompt to the AI platform to tell it you have to do this or don't do that, or make it look this certain way, that's where we're going to put those constraints in there. If we want it to be, if we're having it write an email and we only want that email to be 200 words or less, that's a constraint that we're going to tell our prompt. That's what we're going to tell our AI system utilizing that prompt. You can see there, again, use trusted or accurate data sources and explain the calculations. And then finally, human in the loop. When we talk about this prompt writing and we talk about giving an input to an AI platform and getting an output from it, and using this as a way to save time or to help us with a skill gap that we have, maybe it's writing a PR product or PR communication or something like that. When we're asking it to do that and it gives us back information, we still have a responsibility to check that everything it's given to us is worth sharing or is in a state that we can share it. We still have to check that the grammar's correct, the punctuation's correct, the spelling is right. If it's giving us facts back, we need to check and make sure that those facts are accurate. So, using AI isn't just a thing of set it and forget it. Let it give us the information. It's going to do all the work for us, and we can just put it out. We can broadcast it out there and let it, it's done its own thing. We still have a responsibility to be the human in the loop to check that information. In fact, there's been high-profile instances of individuals using AI and not keeping that human in the loop. Some of you may have heard in the news within the last year, there were some lawyers in New York who they were representing somebody who was suing a airline that was based out of Latin America, and they used AI to draft a brief. And the information that came back from the AI, because they didn't draft or they didn't write their prompt correctly and give it proper constraints and tell it to use good data sources, the AI just made up case history that proved the point that they were trying to make in the brief, and those lawyers were penalized for doing that. It was quite a high profile news story. And the guys that used it were just like, we thought AI was just a search engine on steroids. We just thought it was going to give us back truthful and real information, we didn't realize what it would do as part of that. And so that, we still have to be involved in that. You can't just receive the information and stick it out there. We still need to vet it as part of that. So the time saving is not necessarily that we don't have to do anything with it. The time saving is we don't have to go and do the component parts of it, but we're still responsible for the overall output. So human in the loop is definitely an important part of that. So if you're creating images, creating prompts for images, it's very much the same thing. But some key differences is you need to know what your subjects are going to be in the image. If you're going to say, give me a picture of a dog in a field full of yellow flowers and the sun is shining overhead and the lighting's bright. You need to tell it specifically kind of what you want to see, or the image you get back is not going to be close to what kind of you're envisioning in your head. So you need to be specific about what those subjects are going to be. Know what the style is if you're looking for something specific. And then again, use the prompt builder for images to build the prompts. And we'll kind of take a look at some resources that KI has for creation, prompt building for both images and text. So we talked about 3 different AI options: Google Gemini, Bing Copilot, and Chat GPT. And you can basically get to those just by Googling them. If you go into your browser and you search for Google Gemini, it should take you to the website for Google Gemini. Copilot, you can get there one of 2 ways or several ways. You can go to bing.com and Copilot is built directly into Bing. You'll see it as part of the search, and it will have an area down where you can start asking it questions. We'll take a look at that in a little bit. And then ChatGPT, if you just search ChatGPT, it'll take you to the OpenAI website. You do have to create an account, but it's a free account. It doesn't require you to pay anything. You just create a login credential as part of that. But all of those systems you could get to right as we speak. If you went in and started playing around with them right now, you'd be able to get out there as part of that. So those are kind of the 3 main ones. There are additional platforms that do specific things like AI or like image creation. There's systems like DALL-E and Leonardo, some platforms that do some more specific kind of content creation, but these are specifically generative AI platforms that you can utilize for kind of a variety of different things. So it's time for a demo. I've got a pre-built demo for us. We'll go through as part of our conversation. And in this, we're going to show you how we're going to take a look at a sample project, maybe a project that some of you had done for your clubs, and we'll look at each aspect of that project and see how we need to include that in our prompt. So I've chosen a duck splash. Some clubs call it a duck race. I assume clubs in the Carolinas are familiar with a duck race or a duck splash. Am I correct? Have some of your clubs done duck races or duck splashes before? I see some nodding, so hopefully I don't have to kind of explain or start at the very start of what a duck splash is. But in this demo, we're going to talk about how a club who's having a duck splash might use AI to figure out some of the logistical things about the event, how to think of some activities around it as well, pricing of things and things like that. So let's kind of take a look at how this club might utilize AI in trying to do some brainstorming around this duck splash. So the club, utilizing AI, they're going to build a prompt as part of this. And so remember, starting off, we want when we build a prompt or we engineer a prompt, we want to tell it what the role and goal is going to be, right, for what we're writing. And so in this instance, we're going to tell the AI as part of our prompt, that it's planning an event for a Kiwanis club. We want to tell it, a Kiwanis club or Kiwanis International Club. We don't want to just say club, because remember, we need to give it contextual information. So if we just say club, it's not necessarily going to understand that it's a Kiwanis club, right? Those sometimes are the intuitive leaps that we make when we're talking to each other, but we need to spell it out for the AI. So we're going to tell it, hey, you are planning an event for a Kiwanis club. The event's going to be called a Duck Splash, and the goal is to raise as much money and have as much engagement as possible, right? So we're telling it this is what we want you to focus on as part of our prompt input that we're going to give it. So then we move on to that contextual information. Remember, we already told it this is a Kiwanis club, so we've already contextualized it a little bit already. And so we're going to go on to say, here's what a duck splash is, because remember, the AI is not going to necessarily know what a duck splash is, or if we don't spell it out, it might make assumptions on its own. We don't want it to do that. So we're going to tell it specifically what a duck splash is in our vernacular, right? And what we're talking about. And so we're going to tell it, hey, this is where people buy a little rubber duck and they decorate it, right? And they are going to drop it into a creek or into a body of water that's going to float down, and then there's going to be a finish line, and it can go across there as part of that. So we're going to define and give it context for what that duck splash is, so that it doesn't have to assume what we're talking about. Then we're going to give it specific instructions, right? If we have specific instructions for it. So we're going to say, come up with a ticket price per rubber duck that will help us make as much money as possible with sales, but also still be affordable, right? Because that might be a crapshoot for us to figure out. We may say, okay, we want to collect this much, but what's a good price to kind of balance that against? What will be something that people will be willing to pay as part of that? We all have our guesses probably, but we're asking the AI, hey, help us determine what that's going to be. Then we can kind of ask it open-ended questions. This is where that help with creativity is that I talked about. We could ask it, hey, also come up with anything that will help make this event more engaging and fun, right? We've asked it some pretty meat and potatoes kind of questions so far. Tell us what we should set the price at. Here's some information about it. But we're asking the AI to specifically give us ideas, help us brainstorm on how to make this a better event, what we can do that's kind of fun and engaging around it. We can give it constraints, right? If we need to say the ticket price can't be any more than $50, if we want to tell it that it can't be over a certain price, or we want to tell it, don't include events or activities like this, or we need to say, any kind of guidance or parameters that we need to put around, we could give it as part of that. So here's what the final prompt looks like. This taking all those component pieces that we just talked about. This is going to be the prompt that we enter into our AI system. So we've told it, again, it's a Kiwanis International Club. We're having an event. Here's what the event involves. We want you to come up with a ticket price per rubber duck, and we want you to also help us figure out how to make this more engaging and fun. And so we have our final prompt as part of that. So let's see what happens when we put this prompt in real time on an AI platform. So I'm going to stop sharing this screen. Let me go here. Okay, let me share my new screen here. Okay, so here I am on Bing.com. Hopefully everybody can see that. And I'm going to go to Copilot. Let's move that to AI. or to web so that it looks out on the web as part of that. So you'll notice here it's got an entry for us to put the prompt in, right? When it says ask me anything, it's asking for a prompt. It's asking for us to give it a request as part of that. So notice with Copilot, uh, which is the platform that's provided by Microsoft, it allows us to tell it that we want it to kind of serve in a more creative role or a more precise role. Say, for example, we were going to ask it to solve that Excel equation that we looked at earlier. We could tell it to be more precise, or we could do a more balanced version, kind of a cross between the two itself. And I think that's what we'll keep there. So then we're just going to go, I'm going to copy and paste our prompt that we talked about for the duck splash in as part of that. And you can see there's everything that we're asking it to do. We've told it what a duck splash is. We've told it what we want it to come up with and kind of the brainstorming we want it to do. And then we're just going to click submit as part of that. And Copilot's already starting to give us information. We'll wait for it to come back out, and then we'll kind of take a look at what it's given us. But look at how much content it's giving us as part of that. And we only spent probably 5 to 10 minutes creating that prompt, right, of information that we wanted to ask it about. And look at everything that's given us as part of that. So again, I put that information in there and it's come back. Notice it's very conversational, right? It's talking to me like I'm talking to a human being on the other side of it. It even gives some pleasantries on there as well. It says it's a delightful and engaging fundraiser. And so, it's even telling us jokes. It's going to make it a quacking success. So again, this is that interaction that will help people feel more comfortable about using a tool like this. So it's giving us information about the ticket price, right? That's what we asked it to do. We wanted to get kind of an idea of a price. So it's telling us that when looking, kind of judging affordability versus revenue generation, it's giving us this information. It's giving us a link here to a story or an article about a club that did a similar event. And, it references that those ducks were $5 to $10 per duck. And then it gives you an idea that maybe you could give a discount for getting bulk amounts of ducks or something like that. And then it gives you some suggestions about setting the price and things of that nature. And then it starts to give you information about the engagement and fun ideas as part of that. So it tells you, hey, one of the activities you could do, obviously you could have the duck race, but you could do a decorate your duck contest as well. So, along with that, it's not just one winner that wins the duck race. You've got people that could win prizes for decorating them the nicest or whatnot. You could have duck adoption stations, right? I assume those are live ducks that they're wanting to set up adoptions as part of that, or maybe you just adopt the rubber duck. I'm not sure, but that's kind of a fun and interesting activity. You could do online duck adoption. That's great. Corporate duck sponsorships, right? All companies want to see their logo on a duck, like a NASCAR or something like that. So you could do corporate duck sponsorships. That's kind of fun. You do a parade and launch event, prizes and incentives. It even gives you about, it helps remind you, hey, social media campaign. Maybe it needs to create a social media campaign. Actually, we'll come back to that because that's a interesting thing that we could jump off on. You could have a fun duck safety crew. You could stream the race, have community partnerships. But again, the thing to notice here is that just by spending a little time planning out this prompt that we would use, we have gotten all this great input. Now, us in our Kiwanis clubs, we could have all sat around as a group and talked about this, and we might have come up with this stuff in 2 or 3 hours, right, of brainstorming or weeks of kind of thinking about it or whatnot. But by kind of calculating and putting together, in text what we wanted it to do and giving it to an AI program, it's given us a lot of great creative content as part of that. And so this is just one of those ways that you could utilize AI to kind of come up with that information. I want to pick up a little bit off of that. This says, create a buzz online, shared duck adoption stories. You know, let's give this, let's do another prompt here, and we're going to do the same event, but instead, we're not going to have it come up with ticket prices. Come with a let's see if it will create a social media post for us for Facebook so that we could, we could certainly come up with a post that we could put out there, but let's see if it comes, if it can come up with something that we can use to market this event as well. So we'll say, make the post. We'll just give it we'll give it kind of a constraint. We're telling it this is kind of the tone we want you to take as part of that. So let's see what, so here's a social media post that it's given us. It's putting tons of fun emojis into our social media post there, right? And that makes it more engaging. It put a call to action out there for the person. So that's always important with social media, right? Is to make sure there's a call to action, specific call to action as part of that. And so it's having people mark their calendar and share the post. It even gave us a hashtag as part of that. So again, just with 15 minutes of work, we have come up with the specifics for an event. We've thought of what the ticket price should be. We thought of some activities that we should have around it. And then based off of that, we were able to ask it to do social media posts so that we could market that specifically from there, and we probably could have spent more time on this. We could have told it what the day and time was going to be. It kind of did some assumption on that part of it, and that might not be specific to our to what we wanted, but again, hopefully you can kind of see the power in what you can do here. And it's not just for creative writing. You can use this for lots of different ways, but hopefully you get this kind of understanding of what the conversational nature of using an AI platform is as part of that. So
Bryce, we have a question.
Oh yeah, sure, go ahead.
Yeah,
John, go ahead.
can you also ask it to give you photos or pictures of events that are similar, or that you could actually put in the Facebook posting itself? Show graphics, or I'm just throwing that out there. I think you did say you could do something like that.
You can. So Copilot's a good platform because it will do image creation and text creation at the same time. So let's do that. We've still got a couple of minutes here, so let's just do that while we're here right now. So we're going to ask it to create a picture. Can you all hear me still? Okay, great. We're going to ask it to create a picture of the duck race. We'll say the picture should include a creek with rubber ducks floating down it. The creek should be with colorful trees. We'll say that. Let's see what it gives us as part of that. So it didn't do too bad. Let's take a look at this
Yeah,
picture.
pretty
It'll
good.
blow it up. I mean, we could probably fiddle around with that and tell it some more things. Maybe tell it to make the ducks a different color or something. But here's one that's a little more realistic. The ducks are kind of big, but that's okay. Again, we could probably narrow it down and get it to be a little closer to what we want. But for what we told it to do, that's pretty close, and that's, balance that against trying to go online and Google search, an image of ducks floating down a creek. You might be able to find that, but it might take you a little while. Whereas we just told it to kind of create it for us, and that image came right up as part of that. So yeah, and then we could put that into our social media posts or an email or something like that. We could really utilize it as part of that. So yeah, great suggestion, John, and definitely a fun way to kind of explore how to take that further with that duck race. So is there anybody that can think of other aspects of that you might want to see while we're in here?
Well,
Brian
I have a
Criswell.
quick
Yeah,
question.
Brian. Sure.
Okay, so with AI, right, would it be able to generate a a form that we use for volunteer hours so that everybody's on the same page? So in other words, it'll be one standard form for KI to do volunteer hours. Is there such a thing that the AI can do that with or not?
I don't know if it would create the form per se. It probably would teach you that, or it probably would tell you that it can't create the form, but it can tell you what the content of the form should be. So it should
Gotcha.
say your form should include this, that, or the other. It should include fields to ask for this information or something like that. I don't know that it would ask specifically. I don't know. Let's say, let's ask it. Create a form to record volunteer hours. Let's say signups for our duck race event. Sure. Let's just say that again. We're
Okay.
probably something like that. We'd have to go back and forth quite a bit,
Yeah.
but let's just see what it tells us. This is a great thing about these AI platforms. Yeah, it's doing it exactly there. I mean, there's nothing. I'm not doing anything special here. You all saw me. I just went out to a website and started doing this and messing around with it. And a lot of times I learn things just along the same lines that you guys are learning it as well. So it has given you kind of that information. Again, you probably need to copy and paste that into an actual form. It asks you kind of what your skills and interests are as part of that. But yeah, if you needed help,
All right.
kind of being
Appreciate
like, what do I need to think of that?
it.
You definitely could ask it.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Great one. Good idea, Brian.
Another question in the chat is,
Michael asked
two
about
more.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
So Mary Jo asks, are there any copyright issues with AI generated art, such as the duck pic?
So it's a good point. I will say that, if we were to ask, let's say just Copilot specifically to generate an image that uses specifically copywritten information, or did it in a copywritten style. Let's say, for example, we said make one of the ducks floating in the creek Woodstock from the Peanuts. It probably would come back and tell us that it couldn't do that. Some of the chat platforms or some of the generative AI platforms have copyright protection in them, and so won't give you a response back on it as part of that. I would say normally if we're doing something general of this nature, where we're talking about rubber ducks floating down a creek, trees along the sign, things that are general that aren't rights protected, you shouldn't really run afoul as part of that. Your question, though, the broader sense of that question is a good one, because the way that the generative AI models are generating those images is they are learning off of millions and millions of other images that they've been trained on. They have a library. I mean, they have a library. Their learning model is a collection of millions and millions of images, and those images have been created by content creators, right? Photographers, artists, things of that nature. And so the image that you get back might not specifically have protected content within it, but it has been trained on protected content. And that's where a lot of the conversations about uh, content creator and artist rights is coming up right now. And I think you'll see more more legal proceedings and talk that kind of deal with that, because it is certainly an issue for artists and photographers, people that create content. Not that somebody is getting a direct representation of something they've created, but because the images that are being generated have been trained on that underlying information, which includes their sort of things. So you could certainly ask it to not, include you know, trademarked or copywritten information, but that training model itself is certainly going to include. I mean, those images have authors associated with them, and that's really, I think, where the regulation and the legal tests are probably going to come in the future. So that doesn't necessarily create an issue for you. It creates an issue for the companies that are developing these models and whatnot. So it's a very interesting question, and kind of I heard AI kind of described in an article I was reading today as kind of the Wild West, right? It's open. People are homesteading. They're going out there and staking their claim on land and stuff like that. There's no real rules or guidelines except for some very loose ones, and people don't even necessarily understand everything about it. And so it's kind of this open, unregulated area that all kinds of people are making their way through, and it's changing and evolving so much that it's going to be hard to keep up with for a while from a regulatory standpoint. So, Mary, I would just say, I guess, you don't have to, Mary Jo, you don't have to worry necessarily about the copyright part of it itself, but that is going to be a concern for the companies that provide this type of technology. So I saw Michael asked a question about if you use ChatGPT or Gemini, you can ask a question with a microphone. Can it respond with voice in return? My assumption would be that if you have voice, you have like a voice assistant enabled on your computer that will read any text that's on your computer, I would assume it would read it back as well. I've never tried it before, but it's an interesting thing. I mean, it's basically the output that's coming to you is just text on your screen. And if you have something that reads text from your screen, it should probably respond back as part of that. So that's an interesting theoretical. And if you have something like that and you try it and you find it works, let me know. I'll try to research it on my side as well. But I think technically it should work. Good point.
Brian has raised his hand.
Yeah, Brian, go ahead.
Okay, last time. Okay, so are you familiar with that movie Eagle Eye?
I am.
Okay,
Sure.
so you're saying we won't have technology like that for the year probably 2045, but
Well,
it is
yeah,
fascinating.
theoretically.
Okay, so it's fascinating how that just simple pictures with the duck, how it continues to learn, just like the movie did, how the
Sure.
computer kept learning our patterns, and then finally it kept learning on its own. So,
Yeah,
so you're saying eventually we'll get to that? You think?
it could. I mean, I think that's kind of this is where we kind of get in the nature of what it is to be a human, and we could probably debate that all day long. I may think that there's something about being a human, about being a person, apart from reasoning and deduction and things like that, whereas somebody else might think, oh, the mind part of it is what makes somebody human. Uh, but certainly these systems are evolving. Like they're going and finding information based upon any, as we request things, as we ask questions and whatnot, the data model that it's learned from is growing as part of that. Now, do I think that at some point there's going to be an AI system that is going to take over all the systems of the world and subjugate us to be, to be our masters and things like that? Probably not. I think people are so antsy about it now that that we're probably going to put into place safeguards that are going to keep people from doing that. But I do think that there will be systems that are general enough that they can pull information from different things and stuff like that, and be able to do kind of, because that's what we do as humans, right? If we're having a conversation, we're not just using our experiences about one thing, we're using our experiences and our knowledge about lots of different aspects of our lives. And I think that AI will do the exact same thing. These things are growing, not just growing on their own, but the companies that are building AIs and things like that, they're looking to push the envelope and help it to grow. That's kind of the nature of science and learning. But do I think that it'll become an existential crisis to humanity? No, I don't think so. But I think there's a lot of things that could probably cause us more problems in the next 25 years than AI. I think we've got other things to worry about. So I'm not too worried about AI as part of that. But we should always be, we should always make sure that we fully understand technology that we're creating. You think about the financial crisis and things like that. People didn't understand kind of the underpinnings of that. So it's always good for us to understand what it is. So how does one appropriately reference information from generative AI when writing a paper? That's great. That's a great point as part of that. So definitely you want to follow, standard citation requirements, just as if you were citing anything. You can ask your AI prompt to provide you the sources. Let me go back up here and see. Let me find our other one. Let's see. Let me go backwards. No, I didn't save it, but if I had saved it, you can ask your prompt to share its sources, the sources that it's pulled its information from. And so you can always cite those sources as well. So if it's had something write a piece for you or research a piece for you, as part of your prompt, one of the constraints you can give it is, cite your sources or tell me where you got this information, and then cite those appropriately as well. So that's part of the content usage, making sure that you're giving credit to people that you've based your information on. That'd be the same thing as if you research the information yourself, right? You would want to cite it appropriately because you went out there and grabbed the information. The AI is just being a research assistant for you, basically. So, so you want to follow standard citation, practices as part of that. So, let me switch back over. Those are all great questions, and gosh, we could probably spend a ton more time talking through these. Again, it's once you kind of learn how easy and kind of how intuitive it is, people get excited about kind of seeing all that and asking questions about it. But let me share my screen just to kind of wrap up. I know I think we're over time, or we're close to ending, so just a couple of final points here to kind of share. Again, human in the loop's very important, right? We generated that information, everything that we looked at there, and we didn't just take it and we're not going to put it out there. We're not going to put it on our Facebook post or put it out there for marketing. We need to look at it, make sure that it's, grammatically and it's got some correct grammar and spelling, that the information's correct, that it makes sense, that it looks right and everything. If it doesn't, we're going to edit it, or we're going to edit our prompt, and then we're going to ask the AI to change it. So we still have a place in the process. We need to be the final editors, the final proofreaders of what we've used. Some other tips for using AI, if your output gets cut off or stopped, just tell the AI to continue and it'll go on. You don't have to re-enter your prompt again. Just tell it to keep going. Again, following the kind of recipe that we've given you, that's going to help you create effective and efficient prompts. Again, go out. What I just did, what we just looked at, is something you can do right at this second. So don't be hesitant to go out there and start playing around with it. You can use any of the platforms that we talked about to go out there and just start doing the same kinds of things. Use a prompt generator, which I'll talk about in just a second here. Remember that your prompts are going to get better. Your prompts are going to get better the more you do them. I'm still learning how to do good prompts, and sometimes that takes kind of that back and forth dialogue that you have to narrow down. But the more you do them, the more you'll get like, okay, I need to include all of this up front so that I save myself time. So it just takes practice. Again, human in the loop. Check that your results are correct, and make sure that you're checking the output, because you're ultimately going to be the one that's responsible for it. And then check out the AI resources page that we have that we've made available. So if I've got a QR code right there, if you have your phones with you, you can hold up your cameras to that QR code and scan it. It will take you to a website that we have AI resources available. And I want to let me talk about one in particular. On that site, we have a prompt builder, and what that prompt builder is it's a form that has different fields, and each of those fields will ask you a specific part of the prompt building process that we just talked about. So it'll give you a field that will ask, what is the role of this AI? And you'll tell it what the role is. You'll type it in there. And then it'll say, what's the goal of this prompt? And you can write in the prompt, you can write in the goal as part of it. It'll say, what contextual information can you provide for the prompt? You type that in there. It'll ask for special instructions. It'll ask for constraints as part of that. And then once you've filled out everything, you've kind of put your information, just like we saw with the duck race, where we kind of went through each part. That form is going to kind of lead you through. And as you type in your information, and then once you get to the bottom and you submit, it will knit all of that together and create one prompt for you that you can then copy and paste into whatever AI that you're using as part of that. So I find that that's very helpful to me. If you have a hard time remembering the parts of the pieces that you need to have as part of that, that tool that we have online is a great way to kind of keep that straight, and it helps you kind of formulate, like, I need to have this piece, I need to have this piece. It helps you kind of define all of those on there. So check those out. We've got one for both creating a text prompt and an image prompt. And so it'll ask different questions as part of that. We have a prompt library that you can utilize that has some common prompts that we've helped clubs build that you just have to take and plug your information in, and might help you do some common tasks on there as well. So lots of growing resources that we have available on there. And again, the point of this is not to make you experts, but just to make you feel comfortable with utilizing AI and messing around with it, right? And hopefully that's what we've done tonight. So beyond that, you all have had great input and comments. Are there any other questions? I know Dave's got a question out there that I can get to about Connect, but specifically about AI. Is there anything else that I can help try to answer for y'all? No? Okay. Well, I'll put my contact information on out there. If you have questions or follow-up, or you want to tell me that you hate AI and you don't think that this will ever be useful to you, you're welcome to share that information with me as well, or whatever. Or if you just have something I can help you with, feel free to reach out through any of that information there as part of that, and I'm happy to try to answer those questions for you. But yeah, hopefully this has helped kind of explain AI and make you feel a little more comfortable about it. So Dave had a question about Kiwanis Connect. Leah, am I okay to kind of speak to that real quick?
Sure.
Okay. So Dave, I assume your question probably is in regards to Kiwanis Connect and its replacement, Kiwanis Engage. Is that right? Or you might not be able to answer, but I'll answer the question, assuming that is what you're looking for. Thank you, Dave. So we are still full steam ahead on the build out of Kiwanis Engage. We are currently working on some district level functionality for the system as part of that. We're excited to, if you're going to be attending Denver for the International Convention in July, we will be doing a high level preview of Kiwanis Engage for folks that will be there, that you'll be able to see kind of what the new secretary dashboards are going to look like, what your member profile is going to look like, what some of the, if you're a district leader, kind of what the district area is going to look like as well. And so we're full steam ahead with it. From a launch standpoint, it would probably not be of real value for me to say a launch point at this part, because even when the system is built out, we still need to educate everybody to use it. And if we don't do that by a certain point before the end of the administrative year, we will probably push off the launch for a couple of months, because we don't want to launch a new system when everybody is doing their billing and filling in the last of their monthly reports and kind of doing the crazy hectic stuff that they do at the end of the administrative year. So I guess I say that to say I would expect us to go live with Engage somewhere in the latter half of 2024. That could be August if things go really, really well and we're able to educate folks in regards to it. And it could be December, depending on whether we need to wait and make sure that kind of the craziness of the start of the year dies down as part of that. But I am confident that we will be launching the system, maybe not with every single thing that our first phase includes, but we'll be launching the system by the end of 2024. So I know that's not a lot of specifics, but I can tell you we're still on course. We're closer now than we have been any time in the past. So I'm confident about it. I'm excited about what we've built. I think when clubs and members see it, it's going to be much closer to what they expect or what they're familiar with right now, which will make training a lot easier. So it's going to be familiar, but it's going to have a lot of different new features that are going to make life easier for folks. And so we're excited to show it and to get feedback on it as part of that. But that's kind of where we're looking at right now. And I expect the next, I guess, 8 months that we have are going to be busy. So still lots to do, but we're excited to get everybody in there. It's been a long road. The pandemic was really gave us some obstacles, just as you all know. So I feel like we've come out of that, and we're making a good effort here. So I appreciate the opportunity to update you on that, though. So
thank you, Bryce.
You're
This
welcome.
was such a great presentation. We can tell you put a lot into it, and these resources from the QR code are excellent. We really appreciate your time coming and spending an hour and a half with us tonight. I think everyone has come away with this with at least one tidbit that they didn't know before. So we really appreciate it. And thank you, everyone, for being here. Our education committee is working hard to come up with more great presentations for you. So stay tuned in CD News. I hope to have this recording up for Monday's issue. And when it is available, you will find out through CD News. So thanks everyone and have a great evening. Good night.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate you.
Yeah.